In the history of Jamaica, few events are as painful, silenced, and misunderstood as the CoralGardens Massacre. A tragedy born from fear, prejudice, and a government determined to crush a movement it didn't understand. To tell this story, we must begin decades before the violence. In the early 20th century, Rastafarians were not cultural icons or respected spiritual figures. They were outcasts, mocked, feared, and targeted by both police and politicians. Their dreadlocks, their faith, their rejection of colonial norms, all of it made them a perceived threat to the Jamaican establishment. By the early 1960s, tension between Rastafarians and the Jamaican authorities had reached a boiling point. Members of the movement were routinely beaten, jailed, or publicly humiliated. Their homes were raided. Their families traumatized, all for practicing a faith the government refused to recognize. In April 1963, the tension finally exploded. A land dispute near Montego Bay escalated into violence after a group of Rastafarians clashed with property owners. Several people were injured and 2 died. Fear swept through the community, but fear was soon replaced by rage. Prime Minister Alexander Bustamante's response was swift and merciless. He issued an order that echoed through police stations and military posts across western Jamaica. Bring in all Rastas, dead or alive. What followed was not an investigation, it was a purge. Armed police and soldiers flooded the CoralGardens area and surrounding neighborhoods. They did not look for suspects. They looked for anyone with dreadlocks. Anyone who carried the mark of Rastafari. Men were dragged from their homes, beaten in the streets, tortured in custody. Some disappeared, never to return. Homes were burned, families shattered. At least 150 Rastafarians were rounded up. Many of them innocent, many of them abused beyond recognition. For decades, the government refused to acknowledge what had happened. Schools never taught it. Newspapers downplayed it. The victims were left with scars they carried in silence, and a nation turned its face away. But history has a way of demanding truth. Rastafarian elders preserved their testimonies. Activists and researchers uncovered records long buried. And public pressure mounted as Jamaica matured and confronted its past. In 2017, after more than 50 years of silence, the Jamaican government finally apologized. They acknowledged the brutality. They recognized the injustice, and they offered reparations to the surviving victims of the CoralGardens Massacre. Today, the story stands as a solemn reminder. Fear and ignorance can turn governments into oppressors. Rights denied eventually demand recognition, and no nation can heal while hiding from its own history. The CoralGardens Massacre is not just a tragedy. It is a chapter of Jamaican history that speaks to the universal struggle for dignity, identity, and freedom.